My name is Marco Wendt. Today, we're at the beautiful San Diego Zoo Safari Park. My title is Wildlife Ambassador.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi. Hello, how are you? Welcome back to a wonderful episode of the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all. So if you listened to Friday's Zoo News episode or have been paying attention to my socials at all, then you know that I spent the last week in lovely, gorgeous, wonderful San Diego, California, my favorite place in the whole entire United States. And while I was there on a vacation, it was a very specifically targeted vacation in that I was out there to spend time at the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And I did go to a couple of other AZA accredited facilities, including Birch Aquarium and SeaWorld, actually. It was my first time at SeaWorld San Diego, and I had a great time. And there will be more stories of all of this trip to come probably on Friday. But I am riding high on the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance right now. And of course, because I'm me, even though it was a vacation, I still had to do a couple of interviews at the San Diego Zoo and San Diego Zoo Safari Park. So obviously, we're skipping ahead a little bit here, but I am going to drop one of those episodes right now. It is actually Tuesday, September 9th when this episode comes out. I got off a plane Tuesday, September 9th in Harrisburg. And my rehearsals for my show in Philly start Tuesday, September 9th at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's now 1:40. I finished editing this episode and I'm recording the intro and outro. And at some point here in the next 8.5 hours, I have to pack for a gig, drive a couple of hours, check into my housing. And actually I lied because I have to get a costume fitting, which is at 9:30. So yeah, less than 8 hours from now. And the drive to Philly is a couple hours. So it's we make choices. But one of the easiest choices was knowing how wonderful this interview with Marco Wendt is. Marco is one of the faces and the voices of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. He and Rick Schwartz are the ambassadors of the Wildlife Alliance, and you've heard Rick on the podcast, and now we're getting the partner in crime, Marco. And Marco does the podcast at the zoo along with Rick and does a lot of their social media stuff, and is also just, you hang out with him. I walked through both the safari park and even ran into him at the zoo one day, and people just come up and are like, oh, hey, because they feel like they know him. And that's just who this guy is, because he's such a genuine, awesome person that you too will feel like you know him. So this interview is just two people who love to talking and having a great time. So before we get to it, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, at Rossifari Pod on TikTok. And with all of that said, here is my interview with Marco Wendt of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance.
My full name, though, is Marco Polo Preciado Aldava Wendt. So I got a big name, a lot of history behind it, but today we're at the beautiful San Diego Zoo Safari Park where I grew up. This is if it's not the home where my mom is, this is going to be the safari park here. And I actually am the spokesperson. So technically my title is Wildlife Ambassador, but I'm the spokesperson for San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance.
Nice. That's very cool. Yeah, we always like having ambassador animals here. And now we've got an ambassador human.
I'm still an animal.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, different kind of mammal, but I like to be classified as such.
That's fair. So So, yeah, I'm so curious. I'm sure that most people who are listening know you. You are, very prevalent at Zoology Marco.
Thanks,
and, you show up on, you have the podcast with Rick, and people know you.
Thanks, right.
But what it feels like to me, from my perspective as a zoo fan, was that for years, Rick was the guy.
Yeah.
And then one day, you were also the guy.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I love that. But I would love to hear how that happened.
Oh, yeah. And Rick is still the guy. I just want to point it out. I'm the other guy. Right? No, but it really is. We have two different paths that made us the spokespeople that we are. And we're both spokespersons for, San Diego Zoo Wonderful Lines. But again, our paths are very different. I can tell you, originally when the idea of a spokesperson originally with the San Diego Zoo, there was a person you may have probably aware of named Joan Embry. And she kind of represented as a whole, officially, sort of like a collaboration for us, for San Diego Zoo and the safari park at the time. And then there was one point where the company kind of wanted to have their own ambassador, right, be represented. And there was a job that got posted out to be the spokesperson for San Diego Zoo. At the time, it was San Diego Zoo Global, right? Back in the day. And I remember I just got hired onto the behavior department as an animal trainer, and then that position came out, and I really wanted to apply for it. But I also wanted to be respectful for the position that I just acquired, so I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because then Rick stepped in there and he busted it out of the park, and he became the spokesperson, the first official spokesperson, being an employee for the company. And that's how his role started. But my friend's a little different. I've been here like 30 years now. It's been close to 30 years. Yeah. I started when I was 16. So I'm a local San Diegan, by the way. So I grew up here, right here in this town. We're in Escondido. This is where my family grew up. I went to high school here. And so there was a job fair when I was 16, and it was for nectar eating animals. And at the time, I thought we were talking like butterfly or something for the safari park. Back then, it was the wild animal park. And I applied for it, and I got the summer job. And then I learned it was not butterflies. It was, I don't know if you guys remember Lorikeet Landing.
Yes.
You remember that? Yeah. So for your listeners who are not aware, it's a parrot, very unique parrot from Australia, New Guinea. They are nectar eaters, so pollen, right? So they have a very unique way of feeding, which is liquid nectar, which you could feed at the time back in the day. So long story short, I started doing that. And then I applied for the bird show. And honestly, Miguel, out of high school, it was going to be one or the other for me. It was either going to be acting or wildlife care. And I had no idea which way I was going to go. And when I started my summer job here at the safari park, and applied for the bird show, becoming like not only an animal trainer, that was a title at the time, but also being able to speak in front of people. And it's a long story. I apologize. So this is going to
it's great.
I was going to say, and once I started being an animal trainer at the time for the bird show. Now, at the time, we all in wildlife care. So there were two titles back in the day. It was zookeeper and animal trainer. So I was an animal trainer, but zookeepers and trainers would also talk about their wildlife for media from time to time. And so I would do it. I would share my animals, under my care, to media, depending on the experience. And I wasn't so bad at it. So I would do a lot of it. I also, by the way, Amigo, was the only one who was actually was able to do it and comfortable enough to do it in Spanish. And that really is what kind of set me apart from a lot of people within the organization. And between you and me and all your listeners, I was terrified, by the way, when they first asked me. I tell this story to kids especially, where sometimes in life you get presented an opportunity and maybe fear holds you back or the unknown. But I say, push that aside and take the opportunity. So I said, yeah, I have no problem doing that. But deep down inside, I was terrified. I was afraid of my Latino community, the pressure of it, my wildlife community, making sure I represented it well enough. But I did it, and I would do more of it. And through the years, I would do more and more media, work alongside Rick, doing a lot of the Spanish media. And then there was maybe about 3-ish years ago that they officially presented this position for me as a wildlife ambassador. And I'll share you something with you. Like I teared up because it was quite the moment. I mean, I said I was a native San Diegan, right? My family's from Mexico. So I'm first generation. So when I was born here, I only knew Spanish, and I learned English watching like cartoons and shows like wildlife shows like Joan Embry. Wow. And I wanted to be that person, right? And so the second they offered me that position, I thought about that little Marco back in the day. and where I'm at now. And even now I get a little choked up thinking about it, but it is 100% responsibility and an honor for me being a wildlife ambassador for this international nonprofit company. But that's the short story version of my becomings of a wildlife ambassador here.
That's awesome. I love that. And I agree with you. I've mentioned this on the podcast a lot of times, but like, say yes. Take the risk.
Yeah.
I'm an actor and a musician, and I tour and do all that stuff, and there's one moment that I will never forget in my career. I had been offered to music direct a national tour for the first time, and I didn't know it was coming, and I didn't know if I was ready for it.
Yeah.
And I was at Adventure Aquarium, because of course it happens, at a zoological facility.
Right.
And I was overlooking their hippos, Jenny and Button. And I was standing right there, and I took this phone call, and they were like, "We'd like to ask you to music direct it." And I went, "Yes." And I remember that as that word came out, it literally felt like my body was trying to stop it from coming out. Like I was so scared to say yes.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't said yes immediately, I don't know that I would have.
Yeah.
It had to beat my brain out almost. And I said yes. And then I remember I walked over to Zoe, and I was like, they asked me to music direct, and I said yes. And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "I know." And that changed my entire career. And everything I've done from that point came from that one yes.
Yeah.
But I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified, but it changed my whole life. So yeah,
right. Yeah.
Anyone listening, if you ever have that fear response, I get it. Marco gets it. We all get it.
Yeah, totally.
But we also wouldn't be sitting here and doing the things that we do in our lives if we hadn't said yes.
Yeah, I mean, even bringing back in a nature angle, it sort of like makes me think about the concept of evolution and animals being presented to certain challenges or plants, and you have to evolve. So in a way, it's for us humans as well to evolve as who we are as an individual. And yeah, it's been such a wild adventure, amigo, but I absolutely love it. And like I said, it's been like close to 30 years now. It's been wicked.
That's amazing. So, okay. So I want to get your animal background a little bit, you obviously start off as a trainer and stuff. So talk about this and how did you learn training and where did all of that come from?
Yeah. So, what all started as a little kid, people ask me like, where'd your love of animals come from? And like, I was maybe 9 years old in Escondido, and my family, they got me these little baby chicks, right? And I was all stoked about it. And I created this beautiful little habitat for them in the backyard. So picture me, I'm sitting there in the kitchen window looking at my baby chicks, right? And then all of a sudden I see them alert at something, and then I see this hawk come out of a bush and start chasing my little baby chicks. And I remember for 1 second, I'm crying, I'm scared. What's happening, my babies? But then the second, amigo, it was, what is that bird? I want to know what that is. And honestly, it not to be dark, but the predator-prey dynamic is one of my favorite examples of just Mother Nature at its extreme. Two different animals who've evolved to have these certain attributes, and they're just challenged in a very life and death situation. But that's how it started. My love for wildlife, especially for raptors, birds of prey, eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, etc. So when I started here at 16, that summer job, I had a love for birds and wildlife already. Being a local, I would go to the park maybe once a year with a school group, a field trip. And at the time, it was more of my growing up with wildlife around me. My family, our Mexican family, so we had birds, chickens, dogs, the whole thing. So professionally, though, when I started here at 16 years old, I didn't have any background yet. So my background is a little different than for most people starting off in wildlife care today, because today I tell people it's a trifecta. It's education, get the degree. It's networking, which people kind of forget how important networking is. And the third one is experience, having experience of the wildlife you're learning about or going to have under your care. I started with no experience right at 16, but then moved over to the bird show. Now, at the time I mentioned earlier that the terms or the titles for wildlife care were zookeeper and animal trainer. So think of it like if you went to go walk around the park and you see the habitat of a tiger or maybe a pelican, that would be a zookeeper. They're maintaining a habitat that guests can experience. Now, there are off-site areas that they can manage, but to give you an idea, and animal trainers, we had very specific jobs around the park and the zoo. For instance, the bird show that I was a part of at the time. Or you might see the wildlife ambassadors, right? Maybe on stage showing you really cool behaviors, maybe a binturong, maybe a sloth, maybe a kookaburra or a bird of prey, or cheetah run as an example back in the day. All these were animal trainers. So what I tell people is wildlife care have a lot of cool skill sets, niches, right? It could be incubation. It could be neonates. It could be behavior. So mine was behavior. And growing up at the bird show, I learned hands-on, especially with birds of prey and free flight birds in general, how to do that sort of training. Operant conditioning techniques is called. There's, not to get too nerdy, but there's different tool sets in that. Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. It doesn't mean exactly what people think. It's positive punishment, negative punishment. These are all different aspects, and we rely on positive reinforcement a lot here at the park and the zoo. And so that was my experience. So my skill set, which is really odd because I'm the spokesperson for San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, but if you look at my resume, it's all behavior-based work. So generally focused on birds, but I've worked reptiles, mammals, insects as well. But my niche are definitely birds, free flight, and my absolute favorite of everything on the planet are birds of prey. 100%.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Now, not to break away from San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance for a second. You can't
step away, amigo.
But since we're in Escondido, do you know Hillary Hankey at all?
I do know Hillary Hankey.
Have you ever gone up and done anything with her?
No, I haven't visited her spot, but we actually worked together for a little bit. She worked at the bird show for a short stint.
Yeah.
So that's how I met her there. Yeah, she's awesome. Great.
She's amazing.
Trainer.
Yeah. We had her on the pod, and I'm a behavior nerd. I have only gotten to do a very limited amount of actual training. I've gotten to spend some time training some sea lions and done a few little things with birds here and there up in Massachusetts. But I'm a theory nerd when it comes to, I love studying training, and I listen to the ABMA's podcast, and I love Hillary and Wouter Stillard and Steve Martin and all these incredible trainers. Yeah. So it's really cool that that's your background too, because that's what I'm passionate about in this field.
I was going to say, it's a small world. Steve Martin actually started at the same company that I started in.
Nice.
At the Wild Animal. At the time it was the Wild Animal Park, right here, Safari Park. And back in the day, the shows were actually a contracted company. Really, back in the day, it was a different show. There's a mammal show and a bird show. And so if you remember the movie The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock? So in the 80s, there's a very prominent trainer, Ray Berwick. So he trained all those animals for that movie as an example. And he started Berwick Productions. And that's who ran at the time Lorikeet Landing and the bird show at the time. And so that's where Steve started. I think he started in the 70s. I came in the 90s, but we have the same origin story. It's kind of funny. He's an awesome guy too, by the way.
Yeah, he is. He's also been on and very, very cool guy. But no, that's awesome. I had see, this is one of those things that I love, about doing this podcast and getting to really know the people behind things. Right, because I know that you're an ambassador, but I had no clue that you have a behavior background. That's so cool to me. I love that.
I think of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but 6 degrees of animal behavior.
That's awesome. So, as you've moved through the ranks and as you've gotten into your position now and stuff, I know you still get to spend a lot of time with animals, in this capacity, but it's a very different capacity. Do you miss it? Was it a hard transition away from training every day?
I miss it every day. 100%. I mean, so I've been in behavior department, the bird department, worked with all sorts of wildlife. And of course I miss it every day. But as an ambassador, I still get to interact and work. For instance, I have a vulture date after we're done talking. I'm going to go head out and help support a vulture wildlife awareness day for tomorrow. So, there's a lot of different scenarios in my role where I get to interact with wildlife. Not that I'm maintaining wildlife under my care every day like a wildlife care specialist would, but I absolutely miss it. And at the time, when I first started as a spokesperson, I actually I opened up to the management team that I still really wanted to be able to come back to the bird team behavior and work with wildlife. And I got, of course, do it. But admittedly, with this spokesperson job that I have, it's pretty busy. And oftentimes when I try to go back into wildlife care, which I'm able to do, I get pulled for my role. And it's an important role. So why did I leave wildlife care to be the spokesperson? I hinted a little bit about it, being a little kid here in San Diego County. And I'm going to get a little more serious about it. Being a Latin kid in San Diego County was not a popular thing. And I'm sure it's not shocking for a lot of listeners, even today, the current culture, what's happening in our climate here in this country. But I don't want to be political, but I want to explain the situation, Alex.
Yeah, please.
I'm a native Spanish speaker. I would get in trouble in school for talking in Spanish. I didn't have a lot of Spanish speaking kids. I was the only Mexican kid in my school or my classroom. So for me, diversity was a very important thing that I was aware of, and the lack of it was pretty apparent to me. So when I started working here at the safari park, or back there at the wild animal park, I didn't see a lot of representation of people of color, people of the Latino community. I'm also part of the queer community. So having that sort of background as well, I didn't see that representation. So growing up, learning English, watching cartoons and watching all these shows, there was a show, I'm going to date myself. There was a show called Johnny Quest back in the day. And there was a character in Johnny Quest, the best friend. The main character was Johnny, and the best friend was named Haji. And Haji was brown skinned. And I remember it being so cool that there was a brown skinned kid on television, but he was like the sidekick. And, you know, I am a Leo, senor, if you didn't know this about me, and I like the spotlight. And I'm like a little kid, I want to be Johnny. And I actually I begged my mom to change my name from Marco to Johnny, because I thought it was the most U.S. name I could think of, and I thought that's going to help me blend in, right? So I'm sharing all this stuff because, you know, when I started working here and I got asked to be in a spokesperson role, this is basically why I said yes to this, because now I get to be part of a very large international nonprofit. The platform that I have that isn't lost on me. And so I think about this every single time I'm in front of a camera. I do social media. I do a podcast. These are the reasons, I should say, why I left being a wildlife care specialist, because now I get a voice, right? And I get to speak up for underrepresented communities. So something I'm always saying is like a healthy ecosystem. It's a diversity of plants. It's a diversity of animals. It's a diversity of people. And so that's something from day one that I'm always thinking about, is to be able to represent all the community of the world, right? Not just one flavor, because there's so many cool flavors out there. So I definitely want to help out with that communication. So that's basically it. Why I left animal care. And again, I definitely missed it, and I'll still try every now and again to go back and get dirty. You know, I remember the last time I helped out the team, I was like early in the morning and I got condor poop on my shorts, and I felt so happy that I was stinky and dirty, you know, so it's in my blood, amigo, you know, zookeeping for life, I guess I should say.
That's really awesome. I love that so much. And I need to pause for a second and just say that I love that, like, in your role, you're comfortable talking about all of that. Because that's so important. And so many places are still not comfortable. I mean, in this climate, with saying the word diversity, much less Latino, queer, scary words, right? And they're not. And that's awesome. Yeah. I love that you're able to be yourself in this role.
100%.
You know?
And also, you know, I'm not going to let someone not tell me not to be myself, too. I'm a very confident human being, and maybe that's why I'm good in my role as well.
Right.
But in all seriousness, yes. I mean, these things are important, and words matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very specific in the words that I use when I engage the public. You know?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's very cool. I love that. So you've been in this role for about 3 years now, you said? 4 years?
Officially as the spokesperson, about a little over 3 years now. But again, I've been doing it for a very long time.
Sure.
There was just a lot of years where, as a wildlife care specialist, I was also working as a spokesperson, just not like officially as a title.
Right.
So I've been doing it for a while now, but officially the title, I would say a little over 3 years.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And actually, your growth doing it, but also mainly for Spanish language stations stuff, also makes sense, because, like I said, to me, it was like you were just shot out of a cannon one day. It was Rick, and then it was Rick and Marco. Well, I mean, that's fair. Yeah, you're shot out of a cannon right now, too. But no, I really, that does make a lot of sense, because, like, yeah, you popped in and you were great at it from day one. I remember literally being like, I don't know who this guy is, but okay, this is cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're fantastic at it. And I think it's such an important role. Now, what I'm curious about, though, is 3.5 years, whatever. And you mentioned that when you went into it, you were nervous, you know, getting into certain sides of it. How are you feeling now? How much growth have you seen in the last couple of years? And what have you done? Because obviously you're comfortable. So what have you done to get yourself into that place? Yeah,
well, I mean, the nervousness was really when it started way back in the day, just starting to do Spanish-speaking media, because there's a lot of pressure for that, right? But now, honestly, I've always been comfortable being front and center. You know, it makes me think of, like, the first time I ever did it, friend, it was like in middle school. There was like a talent show in the auditorium, and all these people were doing different tricks and blah, blah, blah. And I chose a poem. I chose Annabelle Lee, Edgar Allan Poe. And I remember, it was so dramatic, you guys. I dressed in all black. I had a red carnation, you know. And I remember my teacher's like, what's up with this guy? But I remember, like, stepping out and seeing all my fellow students, you know, there. and the faculty and thinking like, oh yeah, this feels good. I like it. No, but I've always had a tendency to be front and stage and center. I've always had a confidence about it. And actually, I'll bring up something else because I like, again, bringing up the diversity of things. You know, everyone receives information in the world in a different way, right? It's a beautiful spectrum of colors and the way we receive, right, the world. And, you know, there's different ways of receiving it. For instance, and not to make it more personal, but, you know, I am very proud to say that I have ADHD, and that's something that as a kid was really difficult for me growing up. But now as a spokesperson in wildlife care, I call it a superhero power. And for me, you know, a lot of stimulus. For instance, I'll give you an example. I was being part of the giant panda promotions was super exciting, but that meant I needed to talk to, it was close to 40 interviews one morning. And I'm sitting on a box here, and I have all these microphones and cameras, and I'm talking to all these people. There's producers, there's sound, there's makeup, there's wildlife care, there's communications, everyone around me. And I got all these cameras and lights, and I am cool as a cucumber. And that's because of my ADHD, right? And so I feel like those are ways for me to hone in my skill sets, right? And I tell people why I'm sharing all this is to remind the kids, especially your listeners, that, you know, you're so unique in the world, that take your special powers and use them for your benefit, you know? And so no, through years now officially as a spokesperson, there were definitely cultures of communications that I was not used to, because I always worked outside. Rain, shine, you know, bird poop on me, I'm a happy man. And then I became officially a spokesperson, and now I'm going to the communications departments, which are more of office buildings, which is a little different for me, you know. I technically have a desk, you know, which is something new for me as well. I don't go to it very often, you know, but again, there was a culture that I had to get used to. But as far as like being a good presenter, I learned a lot of that for me. I would say being in the bird show back in the day, you know, being able to communicate to large audiences and hone my craft in that respect. I think that's really what helped me out. It's the people that supported me, but also, and it's not ego speaking, but I worked really hard to be in the position that I'm in. And when I remind people, like, these are my things I tell people, like, work hard, and it sounds odd, but just be a kind human being, you know, just be loving and respectful. And that gets you such a long way, you know, part of that networking thing you're talking about. And the animal world is so small. So if you're not a nice human being, like, it might get around, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of one of my mantras too, you know, especially in this kind of work. It's important.
Yeah, no, same. So I do a lot of hiring for gigs, for theater, and for musicians and stuff. And everyone I know is talented. Really talented. Yeah. So I don't care if you're the most talented or the third most talented. Yeah. If you're a nice person, I'm gonna hire the third most talented, because they're still great. Yeah. And it's all about, and the best thing in the last couple of years in my career, as I moved into, like I said, into music directing and getting to hire people and stuff, is that I don't work with jerks anymore. I get to choose to not hire the person who threw chairs one show. Right. And that's a good thing, you know? And it's like, I give the same advice to people in my industry all the time. Don't be a jerk. And also, like you said, it's a small world. Both of them are small worlds. I've always said with Rossifari, it cracks me up. It takes one bad day for me to ruin my podcast and ruin my name, because everyone, if I did something truly terrible, which I would never do, but everyone would know. I would be a pariah in like 5 minutes because everybody talks, right? You know, that special Facebook page that we're not allowed to say the name of would be out there, and suddenly no one would ever do Rossifari again. That's our industry. Right. So just be a good person.
And it's just good for you, for your own mantra in life. Well, you know, it's good for the soul. Yeah. It's something that I think is often overlooked at times too. Just be a respectful human being. We're all on this planet together, you know, so might as well be good about it.
Absolutely. Now, you're married.
I am married. Yeah.
And I'm married.
Congrats.
That's that one right there. And I'm curious, because you and I have very similar personalities in how we approach things and how we. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about your husband, one thing in particular, which is your husband also very outgoing and very much like this? Or is your husband like my wife, who's pretending she's not here?
Yes and no.
Okay.
You know? So, I mean, we both from the zoo world. Okay. We started in being an animal trainer as well, working with elephants in an organization up north. And he moved down to Southern California. We met through MySpace. If you guys remember, I don't know if you remember MySpace. I had a whole page, the music, the whole thing, right? And actually, I'm gonna ramble, so I'm gonna keep it short. So what I tell people is when they ask me about my husband and I use animals as an example. So I am a coffee drinker. My husband is not a coffee drinker. He is like a golden retriever. So and he knows this. It's not a diss, but he is full of energy and he doesn't need caffeine and he's great. And being around people is so super socializing for him and energizing for him. And that's my husband. I'm more like a raptor, I would say, so I'm up on my perch. I'm like looking and observing, but I'm also very engaging, but sometimes I need to step away and be in my perch. So it's something kind of surprising for people that we're both outgoing people. But my role, I'm always engaging and communicating and sharing passions of mine, which is awesome. And I love it. But then I need to recharge a little bit. So when I'm home, the only human I talk to is my husband, Kobe, and then just my animals at home, and not my happy man, So we're both kind of outgoing in different ways, So we learn we're very yin and yang, very opposite, but we learn how to coexist together.
Interesting. That's good. No, that's good. Yeah.
Marriage, right? I mean,
that's awesome. So she's obviously very quiet, as you can tell. And I am not, but I'm the same way as you in that I need to recharge. Yeah. And I've had moments, one of my favorite moments ever on tour was a whole group of us. We did the show. We were on the bus. We did the show. Yeah. We went to the hotel. We hung out. Yeah. And then we were going to, we hung out at the bar at the hotel, and then we were going to go play games together in a room. And I was so done. And these are people I love, but I was so done. Yeah. And so we all got on the elevator to go to one of their rooms to play games. And I made sure I was in the back of the elevator. And when they got off the elevator at the floor that room was on, I just didn't get off and I hit the closed door button. And by the time they realized I wasn't there, they were in the room. I was in my room recharging and I got text and I was like, oh, sorry, I got lost. I don't know. And I was just like, but yeah, that's how much I had to recharge in that moment. Yeah. But
and it's not a bad thing. No. Sometimes it's surprising to people who are forward facing, but it makes sense to me. You just need a little personal recharge, And everyone does it in their own way.
Yeah, you said, we're all who we are. Yeah. No, but I think the first time Zoe ever mentioned anything about marriage to me was fairly early in our relationship. And she was like, if you ever propose to me, do not do it from stage. It was complete. And I was like, fair. Very fair. Good conversation. We've never talked about marriage, but that was her biggest concern about it. Not what are your thoughts on marriage, whatever. But
you do it quietly. You do it behind a building somewhere. You do not record.
Yes.
I understand.
Which he did.
Yeah.
We did it at a zoo, but when the zoo was closed, which is ideal.
Yep. I get that.
A red panda helped. And it was on their closed day. And it was a whole thing. Yeah.
It's love language, you guys.
Yep.
Everyone has one. To bring it back to wildlife, it's something I'm always telling human beings is that all wildlife communicates. We just have to learn how to listen. And it's the same thing with marriage, right? Some of us are rhinos, some of us are peacocks. You never know, right? So you gotta change it up a little bit.
You need to write a 5 love language style book about but doing it with animals.
Do you?
What animal style? Yeah.
Love language?
Yes. Are you a tree kangaroo?
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm curious. So you know a lot about animals, obviously, from your background, especially raptors. But in your role, you have to know a lot about all the animals.
Yeah.
And I know because I encounter the same thing doing this. Now, I'm fortunate that I'm learning from people. But, I'll talk to a gorilla keeper and then 2 years later talk to another gorilla keeper. And I don't remember everything I heard the first time. Yeah. So I'm curious how much, if I were to put you on the spot right now, and I'm not going to, but if I were to put you on the spot, okay, fine. I'm putting you on the spot right now.
All right, do it.
All right. Who are your tree kangaroos here?
Oh, that does put me on the spot. I mean, I can tell you we have a very unique collection of tree kangaroos here at the San Diego Safari Park at the Outback. It's a niche animal, right? Outside of the standard kangaroos people know. If you're asking about the names, I don't know. Oh, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. Okay. People always ask me a lot of the times, what's the name of I got this yesterday. What's the name of this tiger right here, right? Now, as an example, the Safari Park alone, it's 3,100 animals that live here. I don't know everyone's names,
right.
And also, to be honest with you, it's a personal thing as a wildlife care specialist that I did. And it's not more a spokesperson thing. It's more of a being a bird person is that I would feel some kind of way when I hear everyone talking about this platypus or this polar bear and no one knows one name of one of the birds or the reptiles. So for the longest time, I refused to learn the name of any of the mammals at the safari park or the zoo. No shade, but but maybe a little shame. But it was my way of like, what about all these other animals, right? So
that is the most bird person thing I've ever heard anybody
squawk,
say.
Squawk, squawk. But honestly, that's why the only, I've never really said this out loud, but I'm going to tell you guys right on this podcast, the only time that I invest energy to know the name of a mammal is when I need to communicate it during an event. And again, it's no disrespect to all my mammal peeps that are listening right now. I love you guys. You're amazing. But it's something that it's been in me for so long when I see so much of wildlife that, man, doesn't even get a blink of an eye. But if maybe and this is no shade to my beautiful mammal department, you know, if a baby giraffe is born, the whole world celebrates, but maybe a condor chick is born the same day and no one even blinks an eye. So no, I cannot name you the tree kangaroo names, but I can tell you the species, the importance of the conservation work. But can I tell you the age and who was born when? No. But if I have an interview about him, you bet your mammal butt I will know exactly the name of those animals.
By the way, their names are Beck, Arona, and Kikori.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I know them here. But no, I totally get that. It's the same thing. I'm amazed at the times that I'll go and I'll have an experience and I'll go behind the scenes and I will meet an animal and it will be so inspiring and I'll be so passionate.
Yeah.
I take the pictures and I talk about it on the podcast and all the things happen. And then 6 months and, 200 animal encounters later, do I remember that? No, but then if somebody says to me, do you remember when you met? I'm like, oh, yes, I do. Yeah, and it is. It's a very wonderful memory, but like it is what we get to do. So I was just curious as someone who does that at all different parks, what your experience is like doing it at these.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have the facts are in my head for sure. And my one crux I say with ADHD is I'm really bad with things in general. Anyway, so that's
I am too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to commit depending on the day, and that kind of is my role. So it's almost like if I'm doing a play, I do the play for a few weeks, and then I got to change it up, and I'm doing something completely different. So one day I'm talking tarantula, today I'm focused on vulture, the next day it's going to be something else. So I have to compartmentalize a lot of that information at times, also. But when there is an event, like let's say tree kangaroo is an example, then I will heavily invest prior to that event, so that I have all that appropriate information that they need to know.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I figured, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That's why originally I said I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but then you're like, throw me under that bus.
This is it. And I want people to know exactly that. So next time you get excited about a baby primate, why don't you turn around and look at that bird over there and try to learn an interesting fact about it, Just saying.
I will say, I did not care about birds at all until I started this podcast.
Cool. That's cool.
But then I met some bird nerds and I got to meet them and I got to do some training with them and stuff. Yeah. And now some of my favorite animals in this entire world are birds that I've met and worked with and stuff, and they're amazing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And I'm thinking more because of what we just talked about too. Just wanted to point out, that there's a lot of times the zoo, the company, we do focus on certain species, keystone species. And in all honesty, mammals are very easy for human beings to connect with. So I know I'm making fun of it a little bit, but my background is more bird heavy. So it hit me a certain way, but I'm aware of why, we read mammal behavior really easily. And of course, we're going to be more connected to, right now I'm talking to you, we're seeing a picture of a mama elephant with a baby calf, right? And of course we see the big ears and the big eyes. And this is something as a mammal ourselves that we're genetically predisposed to being receptive towards, especially as being a primate, having the big eyes, the big ears, it induces this parental instinct of want to protect and hold, which is why an animal like a giant panda or an axolotl with the baby face really connects people. So there is a reason why, even though I'm making fun of it a little bit, there is a reason why we can garner inspiration and support from the public with a cool animal like an elephant, as an example, right?
Well, and it's something that I struggle with all the time because I love a lot of weird animals. I love bugs. I love, all the things, right?
Bugs, yeah.
Bugs are so cool.
Yeah.
And I will, we recently were at a zoo where we got to go to the insect room and hold all the things, millipedes and stick bugs. And they're amazing animals. And we got really cool pictures of them and stuff. And I posted them on my socials. And
doesn't get even a blip, right?
Not even kind of a blip.
I know.
And then I post red pandas and I get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. And so as somebody who wants to use my social media to educate, to reach people and to, share the podcast and reach people about the amazing work y'all are doing, it becomes an actual thing I have to consider. If I do a week of weird animals, even if they're great photos and I can put an educational message, nobody will
Your
see them.
attention's going to drop, right?
And will I get less listens on the pod? And am I affecting all of this stuff that matters not because of my ego, but because of the work I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
And so I constantly, there are weeks I'll put up 3 Red Panda posts in a week and she'll pick on me for it. But I also get a ton more downloads that week because people find my podcast because of it.
Yeah.
And when I put up stick bugs, I love them. This is cool. Blue death feigning beetles, mind blown.
Right.
But nobody cares. So I try to balance it a little bit, but it's hard sometimes.
I mean, I thought the same thing when I became the spokesperson. I was given these 2 handles on TikTok and Instagram, Zoology Marco, and I was so stubborn at the time. I'm like, I'm gonna put out all the things that I think are interesting. And granted, my following isn't as big as I want it to be even right now, but I need to focus a little more to your point and garnish a little more support and attention, bringing some others in the mix. So yeah, you'll see some other mammals, some furry ones out in my feed as well, but it is something I think about all the time,
Yeah, it's weird. And it's like, who wants to think about social media that much? But also we're doing
it's advertisement, it's communication, it's education. So I'm learning to play the game, my friend. So I'm still a little bit stubborn in my ways, but I'm learning to play,
I love this so much. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Bird people are y'all are your own thing. And I say that as someone who loves birds.
And everyone's their own. Like sometimes back in the day I would laugh at the break room. I'd see the reptile team together, the elephant team, the carnivore team, the cheetah team, then the bird team, everyone has, it's almost like high school. These little niches and everything, but there's a vibe, amigo,
Absolutely. So you get to come here, from your office with your desk, and I assume that at least sometimes when you're here, you actually get to explore the park outside of just the work you do.
It's the number one thing I do. I mean, so we have a lot of areas around the San Diego County. So we have the Safari Park where we're at today, the San Diego Zoo in the heart of San Diego, our communications area in Mission Valley. We also have our content production team. So we think on wildlife explorer shows, say for children's hospitals as an example, some of the cool programming that you may see. That's our amazingly talented content team. So there's a separate building in Mission Gorge that does that. And my job, Rick's job, it's different every day. Sometimes I'm at the zoo. Sometimes I'm at the park. Some days I'm at the park, Mission Valley, and the zoo, But yes, if I don't necessarily have a particular role set for me to do at the zoo, as an example, I'm always at the park. And also, it's a distance thing. I live really closer to the park than I do the zoo.
Sure.
And again, this is where I grew up. And my favorite thing to do, my job is I get to the zoo or the park early. And I just kind of walk around and I see my buddy. I got to go see Maka the cassowary and Yara. Like they're my number 2, my 1 and my 2 that I check out every single time. And the aviary wings of the world, there's something about it. It is definitely a privilege. And I know your listeners maybe won't ever get the opportunity to experience it, but walking through the zoo in the park in the morning where the sun is just peeking over the hills and it's quiet and you start hearing certain animals. Usually it's a hornbill, maybe thick-billed parrots out here at the safari park. Then eventually maybe you'll hear the tigers go, or maybe if you're down below where the lions are, you might hear Bo or lion. That was a mammal name for it.
That was impressive.
I mean, he was impressive. He impressed me. So Bo, I tapped you. I know that name. But it's definitely a privilege. It's my favorite thing, and Mother Nature energizes me so much. A tree filtering sunlight and hitting my face, and just hearing the zoo wake up in the morning. It's epic. I love it.
It is. I've gotten to do that a few times at places where I zoos that are maybe closed like during the fall and winter during the week, but they'll bring me in for an interview and then just let me wander.
Yeah.
And you get there at like you said, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you just have this zoo to yourself, and it's a whole other place. Yeah. I mean, it's very cool.
Any part of the day is great, but the early morning is my favorite time.
I have heard a rumor. Somebody may have told me that
I may be able to confirm
that you're not very happy when you're in Mission Valley compared to when you're at the other places.
That is not a rumor. It is a well-known fact for everyone listening. I am not an office person, but I mean, I work. Well, technically, so everyone knows, I'm part of the communications department now, not wildlife care, now communications as the spokesperson. So I work with a really talented team of the PR department, and they're epic, and they do so much. All the communications and media you see on the news, as an example, that's all them promoting all these things, press releases, et cetera, et cetera. And they're awesome. And they work in that Mission Valley office. Now, but I grew up working outside, so when I said yes to a spokesperson, I didn't think like, oh, that means I will also have a desk that I'll have to go to from time to time. But I can confirm that one, senor. Yes, I try to avoid going to Mission Valley only because I'm also a very jittery kind of guy, and sitting still in a space in artificial lighting will drive me nuts. So everyone has their own environment, and mine is outside.
That is fair. So I know that cassowaries are number one here, but when you're wandering, I'm guessing it's going to be mostly birds. But where are you drawn? What is it here? What animals here suck you in?
Well, it's animals and the plants. It's the whole vibe. The safari park has the best vibe. But if you're asking me, what do I personally do? My favorite route, I walk in 100%. You got to go through Wings of the World Aviary. I go through there. I look for my whistling duck, not mine really, but the ones I try to check out. Whistling ducks, Victoria crowned pigeons, the hammercock nest I check out. There's some Australian wildlife there too. The Moluccan rosa shell ducks, the freckled ducks are out there as well. The weavers, big fan, saying hi to all those guys. And I go to my favorite loop. So the park, I'm sure your listeners are aware, but if they're not, it's an 1,800 acre conservation park here in Escondido. And there's a good portion that the guests can't access by foot. There's a lot of it that you can't as well for different purposes, right? Conservation projects, our veterinary hospital, our 900 acre biodiversity reserve, it's reserved for local wildlife. So I have a route that guests can take too. That's my favorite. I call it the Australia Condor tiger route, and that's my favorite route. So I'll usually end up going first through tigers because you remember that like walk through with if you're quiet. Again, I love when it's quiet because then you can hear like the bamboo and the bells, and it's a vibe. So if you guys are listening, do it. Stand in the middle. Don't say anything. Look up and like slowly spin around and watch the bamboo as the bells are chiming. It is such a vibe. And you go through and then you see the tigers playing around, and it's great. It's a beautiful little atmosphere. But I also love the walk from tigers. Then you're going to condors and you're going up this bridge. And I grew up here at the safari park. So for me, when I look over to the right and you see that beautiful natural landscape, back in the day, that used to be a lion and tiger habitat. And so sometimes I look back and I see that and I think about how the park has changed, and then I look up on the hillside and I'll see the beautiful condor aviary. And of course, amigo, I'm going to cut to the right. I'm going to take condors, stickbills, eagles, toucans, burrowing owls, desert tortoise, say hi to the condors, bighorn sheep. And I love me some plants, right? And remind your listeners, it's like 1.3 million plants that live at the safari park. And there's a lot of work being done in conservation. So when you're talking about what animals we like to see, it's also the plants for me. And I love walking through that garden. And then, of course, I stop by with Maka and Yara, the cassowary, say hi to them and give thumbs up to the tree kangaroos right next door. And then I loop down, check out the platypus to the kangaroos, and then I'm out. And that's kind of my favorite loop before I do those boring emails and other things I have to do sometimes.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's a very good loop. I insist. There have been times that I've only come to the safari park because I've been in a rush to just do Australia down through Tiger and get out. Like, I'd love to stay and do the whole park, but that area is mind-blowing.
And for parents too, I mean, I've tested this right out with nieces and nephews with short attention spans, and it works, parents. So I would say it's usually an hour or two, and there's some bathrooms along the way. So to your point, if you don't have a lot of time, that's a really cool loop to do, and you get to see some cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny because it's the least safari park area of the safari park in certain ways. Yeah, compared to like all of the, what do you think, safari in Africa and the vehicles and all the things.
But it's a heck of a loop. Some of my favorite wildlife is in Africa, no shade to Africa, but my list is like the Americas for me. That's always been my favorite kind of wildlife, especially Central, South America. I'm throwing in Mexico as well, North America. All that for me has been like my favorite. And then Asia and Australia, especially island wildlife. And Africa's there, but it's not like some of my tops, So I think maybe that's why I took some really cool stuff out there.
Yeah, no, same. I love African, animals, but there's nothing really at the top of my list.
I was going to say, you could technically, if you're a condors, if you're going to do my route, right before you get to condors, you look out to the right-hand side and you'll see the large savanna habitats. And if your eyes are good or a good camera, you can pick out giraffes, rhinos, wildebeest out there too. So there's some African life.
That's fair.
You just got to check it out, keep your eyes open.
Now, you mentioned plants. What is the name of your favorite plant here? And I don't mean the species. I mean, what is the name of your favorite?
Well, you have a name, actually.
Amazing.
But I actually do have the name. So I call her grandma, so we call her mother tree. So if you're looking at safari excursions, so that's the station of where all your adventures can happen. So if your listeners aren't aware, it's Thorn Tree, the restaurant area.
Most importantly, that's where Binturong is now.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And safari excursions. There's this beautiful tree. There's some lettering with a giraffe on it. So I think they named the species they changed the name of the species of the tree recently, but it was known as a yellow fever tree. It's an acacia tree, but she's technically or unofficially, I should say, called mama tree or grandma tree, because she is the mother of all that same species of tree all around the safari park. I was told by our beautiful and super talented horticulture team. So she is one of my favorite trees and plants at the safari park. So next time you guys come to the park, look up and say, thank you, Grandma, or Abuelita if you speak Spanish, and thank her for all the beautiful, again, you have to look up the current species name, but back in the day, it was called the yellow fever tree. The story goes, this is the picture the tree for your listeners who, if you're thinking Africa, grazing giraffe, that's generally the type of tree that they're grazing from. Very thick thorns, sort of a yellow, beautiful kind of dust color to it. It was technically called that back in the day because of colonizers from Europe going to Africa, especially South Africa. They were starting getting sick with like yellow fever and malaria as an example. And they started seeing all these trees around and they thought, oh, this tree must be making me sick. The yellow fever tree is why I got the name. They didn't realize that these trees like really swampy areas, and there's a little bug called the mosquito, and that is what's making them sick. So long story short, that's how they got the name. And side note, horticulture told me this, that all the same species of tree at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Florida are all Abuelita's babies. So
that's so cool.
To her. Yeah. So she's one of my two favorite trees. The other one's at the entrance of Bembo Amphitheater, because that's where I started. And so for me, and I not only have wildlife that I grew up with, but also plants. So that's definitely a ficus tree. It's a beautiful Cuban laurel fig tree that I love.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. I didn't expect such a good answer. I'm impressed. That's awesome. I love that there's a name. That's fantastic. Very cool. So this has been awesome, but we do have to start to wrap up. So is there a conservation organization you'd like to give a shout out to?
I mean, there's so many. Obviously, I'm partial to San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, of course, but what I tell people is like, we are a very large organization. We have over 200 collaborators all around the world, and not everyone can visit us, which I totally get. So what I would say to all your listeners out there is, please, please, please support all your local accredited zoos and aquariums or botanical gardens, organizations that are doing good work, even locally. Not everyone has the clout that maybe we have that could be international. I totally get it, but there's so many places that need a lot of support as well. And the other thing I want to point out too, and it sounds super cheesy, but every day people can do something good for the planet. Every single day, a little kid 1 year old or a person of 90 makes decisions every day. You can make a decision that could be beneficial for you and good for the planet, or you can not. So why not just make a positive decision and a positive impact of the world, right? We all have a choice. We all have an ability to rock this planet in a good way. And that's something I'm always kind of reminding people, that you have the power. So use it and just be a good human being, right? Go hug a tree. Go support your local zoos and aquariums.
Love it. And then it is time, on a much different tone, it's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show, but there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about this earlier. Now, there's a lot of very interesting stories with fecal matter that I can think of, but the one that tops my list, I have my favorite poop of all the animals in the world. I have my least favorite poop and my most favorite poop. So it sounds really odd, but, being a wildlife care specialist, fecal matter is part of the gig, right? We have to inspect it. It tells us a lot about the animal's welfare, its behavior, how they're feeling, what they're eating, et cetera, et cetera. And so my least favorite is actually African guinea fowl in a transport carrier in the summer. The smell, I do not recommend it. But the fun one for me is cassowary. So I'm going to try to keep this super short. But, southern cassowary is the whole of the forest dwellers. They help plants grow. Short intestinal lining, which means when they absorb maybe a big giant mango, which they can consume easily, goes into the digestive tract, and it doesn't get fully processed in that short digestion system. So a lot of it is still intact. So they are are defecating large parts of fruit and seeds in it. And it's so wicked. I would love it when I was managing them at Australia, walkabout here at the safari park. One of my favorite things to do was to go around and look at the poop, and I would pick it around with a branch or a glove, you know, a gloved hand, you know, and then I would see like, oh, he ate the apple. Oh, she ate this pineapple, or he ate the papaya, you know, and that was always exciting for me too, just seeing how vibrant the color. I would get so nerdy about it, and I would just take a look at it, move around. Side story, you're going to love this. We had to do a promo, and I had to show different kinds of fecal matter, different animals. And so we got to get pictures done. And so I wanted the best cassowary poop, amigo. So I collected 3, and then very meticulously, I picked the best looking partially digested fruits, and I put them all together, and I created the best cassowary pie. So I was super stoked about that. So it's all about poop sometimes, friend. You know, everyone does it.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so I loved that interview so much, and I could talk to Marco, or even just let Marco talk to me because he's such a great storyteller for hours. But I have to share this story. So in case you didn't get it from the context clues, Zoe was in the room during the interview. I think she even spoke up briefly. And it was so entertaining because we left Marco, and this is going to really shock you guys, but we headed up to the Australia area to try to see tree kangaroos. I know, shocking. And Zoe was like, that was a really good interview. And I was like, thank you. Yeah, I thought so too. Marco's awesome, and I had a lot of fun with that one. And there was a pause, and she goes, oh my God, you two were so loud. I literally texted Danny and was like, John and Marco at the safari park are talking about birds right now and how much they love birds, but it is so loud and I just needed someone to know. And like, that's fair, right? That's fair. I got such a kick out of that, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. And fortunately, I was able to turn the volume down, so hopefully we weren't too loud for y'all. But yeah, so with that said, I am incredibly grateful to Marco and to the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance for working with me and letting him be on the pod. And there will be another person coming to you from the zoo in a couple weeks. But yeah, I'm still riding high on San Diego, so I had to share Marco with y'all right now. Before I get going, I do want to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And with all of that said, I'll be back here on Friday for Zoo News. Until then, don't forget, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.